I don't really like Ubisoft games. For me, Ubisoft is known for making bad formulaic games with big repetitive open worlds, generic stories, and generic gameplay. Just generic everything. I saw on Twitter that IGN gave it some pretty good reviews, but I've been let down in the past by Ubisoft games that technically got good reviews before. Yes, I'm looking at you. Immortals wasn't too bad. I just really hate when Ubisoft makes games. But anyway, you know how sometimes you have everything in your library and a backlog full of games, but you still don't feel like you have anything to play? So even though you want to play something else, you keep going back to that comfort multiplayer FPS that you're like kind of good at, but also not really. I don't even know what happened there. Anyway, that's what was going on with me at the time, and I just needed some spice in my life. Some razzle dazzle to get me out of the slump that I was in. And the Lost Crown just so happened to be on sale at the time, and I still had like $100 worth of gift cards that I've been hoarding since Christmas, so I picked it up. And yeah, I should have played this sooner. Spoilers ahead. Personally, I don't know much about the Prince of Persia series at large, outside of the fact that there's usually some sort of time shenanigans going on. I know that the series is pretty big for some folks, but it was in its prime when I was pretty young, and I did not have one of those cool moms that just let me play GTA when I was a kid. Seriously, how did y'all get away with that? I did, however, have another stepbrother who would bring his Xbox whenever he came to visit, because I guess he was too cool for Nintendo, and he actually had some of the Prince of Persia games, and they looked pretty cool. Lost Crown looks nothing like the Prince of Persia games that my stepbrother would play growing up, but it's still really good. The combat is fast, the exploration is very well done, and although some of the character motivations can be kind of generic, the mystery within the story is very compelling. You play as Sargon, and he's one of the Immortals, a group of elite Persian soldiers who are not only very physically skilled, but also skilled in the ways of Athra, this game's power system. And it's really cool how this game starts out because you're in the middle of this war and you're fighting alongside the other Immortals, and you take down the tree sentinel. The queen says, "Thank you, good sir," and she gives you a scarf. Nice. Hey, looking good, man. But then, oh no, Princess Peach over here got kidnapped and taken to Mount Quaff by Anahita, a longtime friend of Sargon's, and I think she's also an Immortal. I don't know, I didn't make this game. So we all go out to Mount Quaff to save our prince, and when we get there, we quickly figure out that something's not quite right here. Something weird's going on with time, I'm pretty sure. For example, this guy looks a little older than his most recent Tinder picture, which is kind of upsetting, and I feel deceived. We're attacked by some zombies, and this is where you get your first real taste of the combat and exploration that's in this game. At first, combat is pretty simple. You start off with a 3-hit combo, but as you get more weapons and abilities, you're able to chain combos. The screen looks all crazy, you're flying all over the place, and there's even some super moves you can do once your meter fills up to do some crazy damage. I mean, look at this. Look how much fun I'm having. This is awesome. Another cool thing about combat is that even though Sargon will technically have the same moveset for everybody, there is a surprising amount of customization you can do to tailor Sargon to your playstyle. And you do this with amulets that you get through exploration in certain side quests. And they function very similarly to the charms in Hollow Knight, where each one will have a certain perk or ability to complement your specific playstyle. For example, I like to parry in these types of games, and I found this really cool amulet that creates a slowing time bubble every time I parry, which I can use to punish enemies for being dumb and trying to hit me. And you can upgrade these amulets at the smith. And because resources are a little scarce if you don't want to grind, deciding which amulet to upgrade can actually be a pretty tough choice sometimes, in a good way. I like that it wasn't so easy to upgrade every amulet to max, and that I was gently guided into picking a specific playstyle. In that sense, the amulets almost function like a skill tree without being a skill tree. Game design. I played on the normal difficulty, and as I got more comfortable with the combat system and I upgraded my health and my damage, I definitely breezed through common enemies, especially after I unlocked the dashing ability. Sometimes combat felt optional. Unless the passage was specifically blocked by an enemy encounter, I usually didn't have to fight an enemy that I didn't want to. And even though it was technically my choice to not engage in enemy encounters, once I figured out that I can just dash through enemies, it made combat feel unimportant and more like a slight inconvenience during my exploration, which is probably why I thought at times that resources were a little too scarce. Yeah, that probably had something to do with it. Even though the most common enemies were pretty easy, boss fights were the complete opposite. If you're pretty well used to Souls-likes, they're probably not the most difficult thing in the world, but for anyone who's not an Elden Lord, there's a good challenge here. 90% of my deaths in this game were because of bosses, and it was a damn good time. Full disclosure, I've never beaten a Souls game, nor have I really gotten that far into one, and the boss fights here really made me understand that thrill that Souls fans are always talking about. Each boss has their own gimmick or trick that you have to figure out in order to beat them, and once you figure it out, the only thing stopping you from victory is your mastery of the game mechanics. And once you lock in and beat that boss that killed you for the past half an hour, the teabag is well deserved. It's just a good video game. You know what I mean? Okay, let's talk about exploration for a minute. Exploration in this game is pretty good, if not a bit simple. There's a lot of very diverse areas to explore, and each area has a lot of hidden secrets and goodies to find. To quote Nakey Jakey, it made my little goblin brain very happy because I never felt like I went too long without a cool thing to discover. And this only got better as the game progressed because as you get more abilities, you're able to explore more things things, and you're very well incentivized to do so. I regularly stopped following the story just so I can go look and explore some cool things. And even though areas are a pretty good size, I never felt like anything was too far out of the way, and the rewards that I got from exploring made the trips very well worth it. I'm sure I don't have to say it, but the platforming here is good. Even more so because a lot of the hidden goodies are locked behind some sort of platforming challenge, and those felt like a reward in and of themselves. And a lot of the platforming challenges, you really have to get creative with your abilities in order to clear them, which is cool because I feel like with the art style and kind of the simplified exploration, platforming was the make it or break it of, is this going to be a good game for anybody, or is this going to be a game more so for a younger audience? Back to what I was saying about exploration being simple, the map here is just way too generous. For example, you can buy maps from an NPC, and they kind of try to hide her, but not very well. And there is kind of that cool Elden Ring moment where you get like a map fragment and you realize like how big the map is. But then once you get a map piece, you basically have a layout of the entire area, including the hidden spots. For example, you can see in the map that there's a path, but when you actually go to that location, there's a wall. Okay, well then that's probably a hidden wall. You hit it, it's a hidden wall, you go through. I didn't like that very much. Because the map was so generous, I just found myself constantly looking at the map while exploring, and the map felt like a crutch that I couldn't get away from. And again, like technically my fault, but also I'm a human, and if there's something to make my life easier, I will usually take advantage of it. I kind of wish that this game implemented something similar to Hollow Knight, where you get a map, but it only updates when you get to a save point or like a checkpoint. I think that would have helped solve this issue somewhat, and I hope they do something like that in the future. I have a lot of issues with Ubisoft games, but I really like this one. And I would like to see more of these smaller games from Ubisoft that are just tight and good instead of fat and bad. Fat is bad. I don't know if we will because they're Ubisoft. Knowing them, they'll just create a bad sequel with microtransactions. Wow, I can't believe we made it to the end of my first YouTube video. That was crazy. That was a lot of work, and I'm sure I did a lot of things wrong, but it was fun. Thanks for sticking to the end. Drop a like, drop a follow. Let me know what else you want to see from me. And always remember, I love you.